you for joining us.
Today we're going to talk about free agency in the NFL, specifically what the Bears and the Colts have done since those are our teams, but also the league in general, and including all these quarterback carousel trades and the arms races going on in the AFC West. So that's our topic, a little conversation we're going to have. Lots of stuff going on, so we thought we'd bring in the young reinforcement with us and have him included. So I guess probably should just start off with the quarterbacks because that's kind of the big news maker.
Or the big non-news maker.
The big non-news maker for some teams.
Cases.
So let's start with you. So obviously you're very frustrated with your non-quarterback situation.
I am so frustrated. It's ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know. Like I see some options, but man, we are just dragging our feet on this shit, and I'm not ready for that. I want to know who my quarterback is.
So as of the recording of this, it feels like the most logical or most likely is Baker Mayfield. How would you feel about that?
I actually would like Baker Mayfield. Obviously, we live in Oklahoma, so that I'm very familiar with Baker Mayfield. People here think he's a legend. I don't think he's as good as that. I think he does have definitely a ceiling. But as far as what we're looking for in a quarterback, I mean, I feel like he sort of fits what we do. As long as he can keep... last year he was obviously injured, so I think that did affect him a great deal in his play. I think the last couple of years he seems like a fine quarterback. I'm not going to go out there and be super, super excited about it, but I do think he would be a good fit for our team.
All right, so Payton, what of the quarterbacks that have switched teams, which one do you think is the most interesting change of scenery?
I feel like for me the most interesting one would be Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
That's not something I was expecting. I knew he wanted to move teams, but I mean, to a team that he beat in the Super Bowl, like that's not something you expect. It doesn't normally happen in the NFL, so that one definitely caught me off guard. Especially, I mean, if you think about it, right? He's getting up there in years. How much longer does he have left? That's always the lingering question, unless you're Tom Brady, of course. But the Broncos, they're not really intriguing destination. I don't think. Like that's not.
I disagree with you.
You disagree? Yeah. Well, how so?
I mean, I think that they got a good defense and they got good young wide receivers. So
the defense is there.
I know getting rid of the tight end definitely hurt them a little bit in that area. I think that kind of helped make them attractive, but I think that they're a better team than other people think that they are.
Yes, I guess what my impression of them is like, they're not really in win now mode. I mean, especially when we see all.
Well, they are now.
Now they are.
Whether they can win or not, we'll find out. Yeah. But that trade puts them in win now mode.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and I think unfortunately the position that he finds himself in is obviously how ramped up the rest of the division is. Right. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. While I think that they are a good team and better than people think they are, I mean, when you look at all of the things that have happened in that division, it is insane.
Man.
Yeah, so we'll get back to the quarterbacks here in a minute, but this is a natural... Yeah, obviously, that division has gone crazy. The pass rushing combo, duos, the wide receiver build-ups. I mean, it's
amazing.
It's crazy, right? Like, Kansas City improved their offense somehow. Like, what is that? They got better at the wide receiver position than they already were. What is that? The duos that are in there with the Raiders making the moves that they made.
Oh, it's going to be ridiculous.
When you're talking
defense as well.
That Chargers defense.
J.C. Jackson. That secondary is going to be very hard, but I mean those quarterbacks, they arguably have the best quarterbacks in the league in that division.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think there's an argument about that.
Derek Carr is the worst quarterback in that division, and I would take him in a second.
Oh, of course,
in a second.
Yeah, I think there's a couple divisions you could argue that Derek Carr would be the best quarterback.
Absolutely,
and he's the worst of the four. We believe he's the worst of the four. It seems like, but he, like you said. Very good quarterback. Very good quarterback.
Maybe Wilson has hit. Maybe he's kind of headed on the downhill. If that's the case, then yeah, okay. I mean, I personally feel like the other two are definitely better than.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to. I don't want to make any Raiders fans mad. I don't say anything definite. Like arguably the worst.
But if you take and you add,
it's still a talented team.
What makes him much better at this point in time is because they did add Adams. I mean, if you talk about like, okay, that's maybe true. If Adam goes to a team that you don't know, he might have a connection with that quarterback. It might be able to work out. These two have a connection because they played in college.
Well, and I think with Derek Carr especially, they're there's some speculation that him and Cooper didn't have the best chemistry.
Right.
They brought on Antonio Brown, and they never seem to have good chemistry. Knowing that Adams has chemistry with them, I think that we'll take him to another level. We'll take that offense to another level. They got a good running back to lean on. And that's just a stacked division, and I'm glad that my team's not part of it. Because, I mean, that seems, even if you're the Chiefs fans, you got to be worried about that division right now, the way that that's going. They're not all making the playoffs. There's not enough wins to go around.
No, there's not.
And they're too it's a loaded division.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting.
Make the playoffs there.
It's going to be interesting. And you know what it's going to be too is when we start doing our what to watch, the interdivision games in that division will become must-see TV.
Must-see TV.
Oh, every
single week. Must-see TV. That's going to be fun. So getting back to the quarterbacks, obviously Rodgers stayed. That was and then his wide receiver left him for his former girlfriend, if you will. That's interesting. I think the fact that happened. Now I think that Green Bay is kind of in scramble mode to figure out what to do there. And I don't know. I mean, as much as they paid Rodgers, somehow they were able to bring back most of the things they wanted and even improve a couple positions. As a Bears fan, I'm struck by how that happens.
Yeah.
And hope that, the loss of Adams is enough to make them not as good. We'll see. The other quarterbacks that we saw, I mean, obviously the Watson thing was huge news. We don't know if the NFL is going to suspend him, but it feels like
huge news.
It feels like him walking into that team with all the weapons that they got around him, especially if they can secure some wide receivers. That feels like a team that could be very competitive in an already loaded AFC.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you had Watson, I've spent years watching him play against my Colts, and I got to be honest, I think he's a darn good quarterback. You know what I mean? So, that's going to be a dangerous team. I think it definitely will.
I think the rest of the quarterback carousel seems like it's kind of slotting in place where. Looks like Winston will most likely go back to the Saints.
It does feel that way.
It feels like the Panthers are going to get left out of the carousel and be stuck drafting one of the guys in this draft.
Sure. I'm hoping that the Colts do sign somebody. I mean, we talk about Baker, but it also seems like it's possible that we could end up with Matt Ryan. I don't know if Atlanta does want to move on now that they can't get Deshaun Watson.
I feel like that's probably going to backtrack. Personally, I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
I think that'll be off. Those two, Matt Ryan, maybe draft somebody. Maybe next year's the year that Matt Ryan becomes an available target. But I'm guessing with Watson off the table, they just stick with Ryan for now. That'd be my guess.
So, I mean, it does feel like from the Colts' perspective, either we're getting Baker Mayfield or, who?
Foles. I keep telling you. Foles. We'll be happy to let you give us a draft pick for Foles.
But
it doesn't have to be a good one.
If we do that, we better pick somebody in the draft.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
But then how? I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that'll be the next video.
I mean, you guys were supposed to get Mr. Trubisky, right? That's the one you wanted.
I would say
he's ended up on the Steelers now.
Okay, so you as a Bears fan,
right.
You have a take on Mitch and the Steelers. What's your thoughts on that?
I think he got too much hate on the Bears. Honestly, I saw his pros. A lot of people read more into his cons, but I saw that high ceiling he had. And, people love to forget he did take us to the playoffs. And before he got there, we were not a playoff team. Now, granted, we had many additions to the defense, like Khalil Mack, and we had other players we added to the defense that really made us have like a top 3 defense in the league. And everyone knows that goes a long way. But I felt like he got done what he needed to get done that season to get us to the playoffs.
I mean, his stats are good too.
And we were in a position to win that game against the Eagles. We missed the field goal. You can't put that on him.
No.
So I feel like he got a lot of hate for his time in the Bears, and he did better than most people think. And he's definitely better than some of the other options that are available right now. I mean, I'd take him over Foles, even though that's what the Bears did.
Foles too.
The Bears didn't choose to do that at the time, but that's what I do right now. I mean, I feel like the Steelers, they got Najee Harris, great running back, had an amazing rookie season. He's going to take a lot of pressure off Trubisky. And then they also have wide receiver weapons too. Chase Claypool, young, good wide receiver.
Really good.
They did just get rid of Juju, but, I mean, he was injured last year. He wasn't doing anything for him anyways. So I feel like we'll see what he's got, but I think he can do well.
Agreed.
We'll see. I was never sold on Mitch at the Bears. I do agree with you. I think sometimes he got more hate than he should have, but I also think that he's limited. So we'll see. We'll see. The biggest problem with Mitch to me when he was with the Bears was that he just looked like a quarterback that hadn't played enough quarterback. So I don't know that that's been solved yet. Yeah. So he might ultimately end up being a pretty solid option, but I think it'll take a year or two, and that's another pretty tough division, pretty tough conference.
It got a lot better.
So it's going to be tough. I think that's going to be tough for, and how long do Pittsburgh Steelers fans give him? After what they've had a long run of very high quarterback play and of consistently being not just in the playoff race but in Super Bowl contention, when you're trotting out, 5-6 win seasons for a couple of years because of how tough the conference is, and he still has to learn. And that'll be the thing. Like, did the Steelers fans turn on the way the Bears fans did? Because he seemed to be fragile with that. He seemed like his ego couldn't handle the fans not being on his corner. So that would be my concern. But hey, I wish the kid luck. He seemed like a good guy. I hope he does succeed. I've never been one of those guys that wants a guy to fail just because he didn't work on my team. Good luck for him, but I'm not sure that I see him. Okay, so let's get into now. Let's just go ahead and get into our teams, what they've done or not done, what you're still hoping for now that we're, halfway through this or into the second wave. Where are you at with your Colts?
I mean, I'm disappointed at this point in time. I was very happy with the signing of Yannick. That was a guy who I wanted a long time ago. When he left the Jaguars, obviously we weren't going to get him, but during points of his career, I was hoping to get him. And I guess reports came out that said that he wanted to join us at one point before he went to Baltimore, and I really wanted to get him. It's nice to see him end up on my team since that was a player I was excited about before. He's a very consistent player. I mean, he gets 8, 9, 10 sacks a season. Seems to be always that case, and that is something we sorely were missing last year. I think all he does is improve that defensive end that I already feel like is going to improve naturally just through the aging process of the two we picked last year. Kwity Paye definitely showed signs of being a really good defensive end. I think this is the year he picks it up. I also believe in Gus Bradley's system. It's more favorable to those defensive linemen, and I think that's fantastic. I have heard rumors of us being linked to Trayvon Matthew, the Honey Badger, and I gotta say, I would be so excited if that was the case. If that actually happened, I would flip my lid. I'm a huge fan of his, was a huge fan of his in college. I love that kind of position and that kind of play. I think it makes sense with Gus Bradley and how he likes to use his safeties to pair that together. I would be so I would be so happy if we could do that. But then again, touching back to that real quick, the quarterback, until that happens, I probably won't be satisfied no matter what the case is, and probably getting the disappointment no matter what the case is. So as far as free agency is concerned, yeah, that's where we're at. I mean, I like some of the re-signings to add, keep players on our team, but I just feel, and this isn't no surprise, it's the way that we do things. I wish we were a little more flashy. I'm seeing all these people come off, and I'm like, man, that person would help our team, that person would help our team. But again, I think if we ended up with Trayvon Matthew, it would mask a lot of that disappointment for me, get me super excited for the season going forward. I still would like to see them add another wide receiver, and the receiver that I would like to see is still out there, Scantling from Green Bay. I would very much like to see that.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're not going to be happy with the results of that, because I think with Adams going,
they're going to keep him.
They're gonna at least pay him more than what your GM's going to be comfortable paying him.
Probably, that makes sense.
That'd be my guess.
I guess that is true.
I feel the same way. He's one I wanted on the Bears. Analyzing the receiver market, there's not a lot out there, and I think that I feel the same way. I just think, unfortunately, he's probably going to go back to Green Bay because they're going to price him out of what our conservative GMs are looking to do. So, but and there's not a lot out there. Luckily, loaded draft class. So that'll give us something to talk about in the draft video, because we'll both be looking for receivers, I think.
Yeah, no kidding. What about you guys? How you feeling about those Bears?
Okay, so I know I'm probably have more of this than you do, but from what you've seen, or what are your thoughts?
I mean, I haven't seen any big names, but I kind of like that, actually. I feel like we need to build our team slowly. We're not in a position to win a Super Bowl last year. Justin Fields is not ready for that yet. If he'll ever be ready, we'll find out. So obviously we don't want to all these big crazy moves. We didn't get involved in any of those. That's fine. I feel like it's okay. Build the team up slow. Maybe in 2 or 3 years we'll get our name out there, kind of like we did with the Khalil Mack deal. Kind of run the table a little bit with the free agency and really make over the team. But I mean, I feel like I know we got St. Brown from the Packers. Under the radar wide receiver, more depth at that position.
Yeah, I think that's a depth.
Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we got some defensive players. I'm not too familiar with them.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll dive into that for you. Let me fill you in, son. Let me help you feel better about our new GM. I love what I've seen from the new GM so far. He came out. He said that he was going to look for value signings. He said that he was going to build the offensive and defensive line first because he believes that's where football games are won. And that's what he's done. And so, starting with the offensive line, he gets a center from Green Bay that was kind of a bench guy but did very well filling in, that will know the system of our new offensive coordinator. That guy seems like a very good value signing in that where he's just starting to hit the peak of his career, so we're going to get him for good peak years. Then they are looking at that center, by the way. I have to write names down or I forget them. There's a Lucas Patrick, that's his name. He said all the right things. Aaron Rodgers tweeted him congratulations. He seems to like him a lot. But then they're bringing a guy in by the name of Ryan Bates, who is a backup for Buffalo. They're going to have him on a visit, I believe, tomorrow, hoping we can lock him up. He's also an interior lineman. Actually spent time playing all 5 line positions at one point or another during his career, but really thrived this year backing up the guard and center positions at Buffalo, which that offense seemed to work pretty good. So I think if you get a fill in from that offensive line, and that's what I like. He's bringing in a couple guys, value signings, not going to have to break the bank. They're right hitting the peak of their career, and that's what we needed to rebuild our line. And then what I'm hoping for, I'm still hearing we still have high interest. I mentioned this in the first free agency video. High interest in the former Colt Eric Fisher. He was in the Chiefs when our GM was there, so there's some familiarity. I think that would be a good 1 or 2 year stopgap. Give us a good solid across the line, adding our rookie from last year, Jenkins, and Whitehair, who's been a solid lineman for us.
I mean, that should be.
I think that would give us if we can get those 2 guys, I think that gives us probably the best line we've had in a really long time, and a year or 2 for them to really blend together before we hit that, like you said, ready to compete. On the defensive line, our big splash signing, our first day thing, didn't work out, and you know what? I think our GM handled that perfectly. He said, "Look, I'm not gonna commit big dollars to a question mark. We're not going to take that risk." I like that. You've mentioned in the past, I know you don't like bringing in guys that have injury potential. It's not worth the risk. You don't want to be paying a guy to be sitting on the IR.
Nope.
So I like, that, and not only did they walk away, they within hours signed another defensive tackle who you guys were interested in. Similar to these offensive linemen, Justin Jones coming from the Chargers. Filled in, bench player, same age, like 26, 27 range, 25, 26, 27. All these guys are in that age range. So it's a guy about to hit the peak of his career. If he plays really well for it, we send him to like a 2-year contract. He plays really well. We can extend him. And I like what I saw. One thing about him I read that was really impressive. I think I might have told you this. When he was starting for them, they were averaging 120 yards a game against the run. When he was out, the last 4 games of the season, they averaged 170 yards against the run. So obviously that's a high impact against the run player.
Absolutely.
And we have Quinn to be a sack guy, and then we brought in a former Colt that's going to be familiar with the defense. That was on the rise. I know you were a big fan. We had talked about this several times.
Absolutely.
Mohammed.
Yeah, really good.
A really good young up-and-coming player to be the other defensive end to help Quinn. He's a good combo, I think, of a run guy and a pass rusher.
Absolutely.
So I like that signing. And then the linebacker Nick Morrow was a good one. We touched on that after the Khalil Mack trade. We had already signed him. He feels like another one of these guys in that same age range where you bring in a guy that's about to break out, that's been on the bench, that's ready for that starting role. And then we have a ton of cap space for next year. So doing it smart, not overspending when we shouldn't, like you said. We've been linked to Honey Badger too. I don't feel like that makes sense for us at this stage. But man, would I be excited. He's an electrifying player like you mentioned. And we do need a safety, but I feel like at this point we filled enough holes that we could probably look for safety in the draft. There's a couple I like. We'll talk about that in the draft video, but yeah, I think what we got left, we could certainly use another wide receiver. Oh, Brian Pringle, we didn't talk about him.
Yes, that's probably
that might be our best signing of them all. Yeah,
I agree.
Seems like a kid that is ready to break out, ready to have a bigger role than he was kind of stuck behind some fairly talented guys in Kansas City.
Sure.
So maybe a bigger role.
He still found a way to get targets, which tells you like he knows what he's doing. He knows how to get open.
And you mix that with Mooney, I think that's a very good. I think that's a very good sign.
Yeah, and yeah, so we probably need to add some more depth in there. Maybe get a player or two in the draft in that position. But yeah, I think we're shoring up the holes we need to shore up. Add some depth. But next year's the year for us where we're gonna have a ton of cap space.
Right.
We'll really see what this GM does. Kind of, I think this is gonna be a fun year for us where we don't feel that pressure to have to make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
It's about, do these signings work out? Do they seem good? Which at the moment I'm very happy with. How does Fields develop?
New
coach, right. So for
Yeah,
that
I
expectation,
that's the biggest thing. My biggest hope for you guys is that he does improve,
right,
because he looks terrible.
But see, here's the thing too, though. For me, is even if he does continue to look terrible, even if this coach can unlock him, we're building it correctly. Where we're going to be in the position that you guys are kind of in, where even though maybe you haven't done it, you haven't really grabbed that guy. Haven't grabbed that guy. But there was talk that Watson wanted to go to the Colts, that Wilson wanted to go to the Colts. Last year, the big name guys wanted to go to the Colts. Your GM didn't pull the trigger on any of them, or couldn't really work out a deal for any of them.
Yeah, it's kind of irritating.
But you became a quarterback destination because all the other pieces were there. Yeah. So I feel like over the next 2 years, if we do this right, we could build that team, and either Fields will be the guy that takes us there, or we'll be the destination for somebody that wants to come replace him.
I agree. I think that's the best way to go about building a team anyway.
Right.
So
and
absolutely makes sense.
Yeah, and so for the GM to say that, and then his signings and actions support that, that's the thing to be excited about as a Bears fan.
Yeah, it does feels like your guys' office now kind of resembles a lot of what we do in our philosophies as well, like in that.
Well, yeah, and it doesn't surprise because those guys both came from, the Kansas City tree, which those guys all were also connected to the Patriots, which is how they do business.
The way they do business, yeah.
And so it's like this has been now a proven method to be smart, not overspend, cut guys when they're getting too old, don't be afraid to move on from guys, and just be smart about what you do. Absolutely. And it seems so simple and so easy, but yes, so many of these GMs struggle with doing it, and
sometimes it doesn't yield results.
No. Yeah, I mean sometimes you gamble on a guy thinking he's the perfect fit, and he doesn't.
He doesn't fit.
And then you trade him to the Washington Commanders and still get something out of him, even though it's obvious he's no good. Yeah. And you got to at least feel good about that.
That is true. That is true. The financial aspect's pretty cool. Anyways, well, thank you for joining us here at Lowry Sports Rhetoric. This was fun. Hopefully we'll get this third one in every once in a while. Probably kind of rare, but it's been a blast. Thank you for joining us.